Hello and welcome back to Eastern Geeks Out, an EP Media associated podcast where I'll be discussing news and interesting topics in the gaming and entertainment world. My name is Deforest White and I'll be your host for the duration of these episodes. This is our 7th episode in the series and our first back in the 2022 fall semester. I am so glad to be back with you all, and we have had a very exciting summer for gaming. However, we do not have time to go over everything. I wish we did. It would be a whole lot of Xenoblade on my end. However, just today, Tuesday, September 13th, we had not one, but two AAA gaming presentations almost simultaneously. We had a Sony State of Play this afternoon, just an hour and a half from the time of recording this, and this morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we had a Nintendo Direct. So I'm just going to run through and recap everything that occurred in these, or at least some highlights from each. So without further ado, let's get started. First up, Nintendo Direct opened with a pretty heavy hitter. Fire Emblem Engage is going to be the next mainline Fire Emblem game, which is really cool on its own. However, the game appears to be taking things in an interesting direction. Players who are familiar with Fire Emblem Heroes, the mobile game, may recall that Fire Emblem has sort of dabbled in the realm of like bringing back previous games' characters for sort of a crossover. However, we've never had that be the case in a mainline series game outside of non-canon DLC, as was the case in Fire Emblem Awakening, where you could recruit the characters than just like sort of shell-based character art units from prior games in the series. Fire Emblem Engage looks like it's doing an almost Persona or Shin Megami Tensei-esque gameplay, where you have your character that's your main character on the party in the current world that this game takes place in, as well as a hero, as they appear in Fire Emblem Heroes on smartphones, that they are summoning to fight alongside them. This is a new concept for the series itself, however, not technically the first time that this ground has ever been treaded. People may recall in Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, as well as the remake for Nintendo Switch, there was a Shin Megami Tensei Fire Emblem crossover game in which modern-day characters in modern-day Japan were able to summon Fire Emblem characters to fight alongside them as Performa, play on Persona, that were heavily based on both their original game appearances as well as the sort of idle aesthetic of that game. And while this game looks to be taking much more heavy inspiration from the previous games in Fire Emblem specifically and being more of an homage to the series as a whole, the art direction is bizarrely clean. It looks, honestly, I absolutely adore the way that Fire Emblem Three Houses as well as Fire Emblem Three Hopes looks, but this game looks to be leagues above in terms of graphical fidelity. Although I will say the protagonist of this game has sort of a half crimson, half bright blue, almost Pokemon-esque hair color, and I'm not quite sure what to make of it. After that, it was announced that It Takes Two will be receiving a port to Nintendo Switch, and honestly, I was expecting this to be a cloud port, but no, the whole game is going to be downloadable. For those of you who are unaware, It Takes Two is a, not competitive, a cooperative two-player puzzle game and action game in which players control a couple who are sort of having like marital issues, and the two of them are transformed into puppets and have to combine their abilities to work through a series of puzzles, and it's just a grand old time. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it won Game of the Year at the Game Awards in 2021. So very well beloved game. I think it was on Xbox and PlayStation, if not PC already, but with how graphically impressive the game was, I was not expecting it to get a Switch port. After that, we have Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, which has actually already had an Eastern release in the past. However, as of early 2023, we will be getting the first ever Western release of it, which is fantastic. For those of you unfamiliar with Fatal Frame, It is actually a first-party Nintendo horror game series that hasn't really gotten as much of a focus here in the West. Honestly, I think that the most famous it's ever been was when Yumi, the protagonist of Maiden of Blackwater, was an assist trophy in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with her spirit camera. I think that may have been the most attention that the series has ever garnered over here. So hopefully this title's release will send the series into receiving more of the spotlight because it deserves more attention. Wave 2 of the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 expansion pass was announced. Wave 1 already had some pretty minute content, but it was largely like a bunch of item drops, and I personally, even though I was like, I'm buying that expansion pass day one, have yet to buy the expansion pass. However, this new pass, this new wave of the expansion pass features Ino, who is a new hero who looks to be completely mechanical, of no pawn design, and after playing through her story quest, will unlock both her as a recruitable hero, as well as the ability, as heroes work in this game, to gain her character class for all 6 of your main protagonists. For those of you who haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles 3 yet, I just finished it. It's fantastic. It is one of the single best gaming experiences I have ever played through, and I highly recommend it. Bizarrely, a Fist of the North Star themed fitness boxing game is being released for Nintendo Switch in March of 2023. I don't know why. Fitness boxing was an existing series. I believe there's already been 2 of them on the platform that were both... Actually, I'm not sure. I think they were eShop specific, but there could have been physical releases. I'm not 100% certain. Do not quote me on that. However, when I first saw the trailer start out and it was showing me Kenshiro from Fist of the North Star, I fully thought that this was going to be like a port of the Badlands, like the Yakuza game that had the Yakuza developers making their Fist of the North Star game, which is in itself an amazing thing that I'm glad happened. I was not expecting it to be a boxing rhythm game. Never occurred to me. If any of you are familiar with the Omaiwa mo Shinderu, you are already dead meme from a few years back, now you can live out that fantasy I guess you had, if you want. Who knows how expensive it'll be, but I mean, it exists. Tunic is getting a Switch port. That's one of my best friend Nick's favorite games. I've not played it. He recommends it, so maybe I'll pick it up. We got more footage of Front Mission 1 and 2 remakes, which, pretty cool. This is sort of somewhere in between the gameplay of like Final Fantasy Tactics and XCOM, where you maneuver your units around on an isometric grid and then attack a certain distance away. For those of you who are somewhat familiar with how the game Project Triangle Strategy ended up playing, this looks like it's going to have very similar mechanics to that. Front Mission 1 will be releasing in November, and Front Mission 2 it will be releasing in 2023. Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. Story of Seasons is a follow-up, or I shouldn't say that, a spiritual successor to the Harvest Moon franchise developed by some of the original developers. And A Wonderful Life bizarrely reuses the name of one of the previous Harvest Moon titles. The GameCube game Harvest Moon, It's a Wonderful Life, is the only one that I've ever played, which is interesting in that it is a game in which you, as your main character, can show up as a kid to this new town, grow your farm, grow old, find a spouse, have a kid, grow older, watch that kid grow up, watch your spouse grow older, and then die surrounded by people who love you. Roll credits. Truly bizarre. This happened to me when I was like 11 years old, and I'm still reeling. And based on the trailer for this game, it honestly looks like it might just be that, but again, I'm not sure how they're able to get away with that. But hey, fair game, I guess. The next Splatoon 3 Splatfest, the first one since the game was officially launched after the worldwide splatdown that happened before the launch. Last one was Rock, Paper, Scissors. This one is Gear, Grub, or Fun, asking about what item you would bring to a deserted island. Would you bring gear to help you? Would you bring food? Or would you bring things to keep you entertained? Now, the correct answer is, of course, things to keep you entertained. However, my waifu, Shiver, does say that you should bring gear, so I'm kind of torn. Do I go with the correct answer, or do I go with the objectively correct answer? Kind of leaning towards the latter. A new Octopath Traveler game was announced. To be completely honest, I actually thought that Triangle Strategy was the follow-up to Octopath Traveler, but no. Square Enix is making a whole lot of use out of this 2.5D engine that they've been running with ever since the release of the original Octopath Traveler, with Triangle Strategy and Live Alive. They've got a pretty decent little library of games here using this engine, and Octopath Traveler 2 looks fantastic. Although I will say one particular character design looks suspiciously like one that was already featured in Bravely Default 2. So I don't know, guys, maybe be a bit more creative with that. A new Final Fantasy Theatrhythm game, Final Bar Line, is going to show up in February. There's going to be the normal Theatrhythm things that you end up with in Final Fantasy, where you play rhythm games featuring songs from all of the previous games in the Final Fantasy franchise. However, this game is also going to feature guest songs from a bunch of other Square Enix affiliated games, including Live Alive, as well as Nier Automata. So that is pretty cool. We have more games coming to Nintendo 64 Online. We have Pilot Wings 64, Mario Party 1 and 2, and 3, sorry. We have Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, 1080 Snowboarding, Excitebike 64, and GoldenEye 64. That last one is particularly noteworthy because, as some of you may recall, that game was actually developed and released by Rare, back when they were a Nintendo affiliate instead of a Microsoft affiliate. They've been sort of friendlier with Nintendo over the past few years, notably with Banjo and Kazooie being added to Smash Brothers, who are perhaps their most famous IP. But I can only hope that this means that somewhere down the line we can get new Killer Instinct content both on Xbox and Nintendo. We need that. It needs to come back. Somewhere Maximilian Dude would have a heart attack, and you know what? That's just a sacrifice that I shouldn't joke about that. Factorio, bizarrely, is getting a console release because I guess people wanted that, as well as IB. If you're unfamiliar with IB, this is one of the early RPG Maker horror games, which, I mean, that in itself is an entire subgenre, which, if you're unfamiliar with it, is deserving of its own rabbit hole. I highly recommend that you go down and look at some of the earlier ones. If you're more into the artistic side of things, maybe look at Mirai Nikki and Mirai Nikki is Future Diary. I have forgotten the name of that game. I am ashamed. I am 100% certain that my friend Olivia will make fun of me relentlessly. Anyway, Mario Strikers Battle League is getting another update with Pauline and Diddy Kong showing up now, and I care just as much as I did last time. Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key is going to launch on February 24th of 2023. This is honestly a bizarre thing for the Atelier series. Normally, they go like one game and then swap protagonists. Ryza has proven so popular that she has gotten 3 games in a row. And I know that there's like a whole bunch of people out there that are like, the combat's great, the graphics are beautiful, it's one of the prettiest games out there. But if we're being honest, y'all are here because the game has thigh jiggle physics. I know what you're about. I don't care who you are. You can be fully asexual. The game's got thigh jiggle physics. You're gonna buy it. We have 2 new tracks coming to Wave 3 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC. We have Merry Mountain from Mario Kart Tour, which I have not played, and Peach Gardens from Mario Kart DS, which I played in the 3DS game. They look good. I will say I'm definitely more excited for Peach Gardens than I am Merry Mountain. I think that the last wave had better tracks from Mario Kart Mario Kart Tour. But always down for new content, and I mean, this is new content. Nintendo Switch Sports actually got a delay during this Direct. It was announced that the golf game, which was previously going to show up in October, is now going to be delayed until this coming holiday season. Pikmin 4 is confirmed for 2023. Thank God the fire didn't destroy everything. Shigeru Miyamoto came in and talked about Pikmin Bloom, which actually already launched. This was a weird bit of the Direct. And then immediately afterward, Ubisoft announced, or I guess re-announced, Just Dance 2023, which, I mean, there's been a Just Dance game released every year for almost as long as I can remember. I could not tell you when Just Dance began. Ubisoft has been on that grind continuously. However, this game looks a bit different because it looks as if they're embracing the games as a service model, which leads me to believe this could be the last Just Dance game for the foreseeable future. This could be like, instead of like there being a new game in the future, you just pay for seasons and they'll update it later and be like, yeah, Just Dance 2023 is Just Dance 2024 now. And we get sort of like the Overwatch 2 treatment where it's like, nope, old game gone, new game here. It's just an update. I'm not entirely against this, but I worry that because of Ubisoft's business practices in the past, that it could end up being a bit predatory of younger consumers. And this is a genuine concern, and hopefully we don't fall into that hole. Also, I, as usual, know none of the songs that were shown. Harvestella, there's been a lot of like farm-themed games in the fantasy realm. However, Harvestella looks really cool to me specifically, 1, because of the graphical art style, and 2, because the selling point of the game is like, hey, you've got this town, and periodically, everyone in your town dies. The world goes insane. Everything's all colorful. There's this like sort of Purge-esque like event in which your town goes to hell and back, and you are like the only person left as the defense. And I love this. Turning this like farm simulation into more of a like base building, like protecting the town with less of a focus on the farming itself. I'm all for that. I'm gonna be honest, I am so over how many games are just like, hey, you could grow a farm, plant some turnips. I don't need that. I did not want that, and I have not been to my Animal Crossing island in perhaps 3 years now. Master Detective Archives Raincode will show up in 2023, and this one immediately caught my eye because it shares an art style with one of my favorite series, Danganronpa, and it looks like it's going to continue the theming of Danganronpa as well, with solving murder mysteries and logic puzzles taking place in very like surreal aspects of the main character's brain. I absolutely love the design. The soundtrack sounds great. Just an all-around good time. Resident Evil Village is getting ported to the Switch, along with the Winter's Expansion DLC, as well as Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2, and Resident Evil 3, those last 2 being the remakes, not the originals. All of these are coming as cloud versions, which should not be a surprise in terms of like what's getting ported. However, personally, I'm surprised these games are being ported at all. These were touted as like big deals for the PlayStation 5 during its initial launch lineup, and it's crazy to me that we're seeing like so much backplay like after these games have their initial launch. The term timed exclusive gets thrown around a lot in Nintendo Directs. This Direct didn't so much have a lot of those. It seemed like timed exclusives for other consoles are coming here instead, which, honestly, all for it. Just make sure you have a good internet connection. In a similar vein, November will also see the release of Sifu, which is the aging martial arts game, which looks super sick. We got a new trailer for Final Fantasy VII Reunion Crisis Core. Looks to be more of the same. We have a remaster of the GameCube classic, Tales of Symphonia. The boy Lloyd is back. I'm actually genuinely surprised that this didn't get like a full-on remake. It's keeping the chibi art style of the GameCube game and looks like a lot of the original models as well, although, of course, it does look like of higher graphical quality just by nature of being on a more capable system. However, it looks like the textures are largely the same. The models are being reused, so I'm not sure what all in terms of new content we're going to get, but it is being marketed as a new game. So that's pretty neat. Kirby's Return to Dreamland, a Wii game from 2011, is being re-released as Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. This game was sort of like the herald of the modern Kirby game, which is great. This was in between the releases of the DS games like Kirby Superstar Ultra and Squeak Squad, and the 3DS games, which would sort of like cement the modern Kirby games, like Kirby Triple Deluxe and Kirby Planet Robobot. Return to Dreamland is sort of like the linchpin in that ties it all together. It was the first original 2D on a main console in a pretty good amount of time. However, the deluxe edition that is being released for Switch looks to take greater inspiration from the 3DS titles than it does the initial Wii release. It's going to have a huge number of additional mini-games, as well as new content as far as like legacy stuff celebrating Kirby's 35th anniversary, and just all around looks like a good time. It's Kirby. We all love Kirby. And then the final trailer of the Direct was the new Legend of Zelda game, the sequel to Breath of the Wild. We finally have a name for it. It is called The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, or Tears of the Kingdom. It has not been confirmed yet which pronunciation is correct. I'm going with Tears. Maybe it's Tears. It looks to have a very, very high focus on verticality in gameplay. We get to see Link use a couple of new spells based on verticality, including one in which he simply launches an item upwards while holding on to it. I'm putting all bets on that one being titled either Lift or Elevate. Let's pour one out for my boy, the best possible title, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wind, of my own creation. Did not get it right, and I was so banking on that. But that was the Direct for Nintendo. Of course, I skipped over like a couple minor like reveals. There was more about like the new Mario plus Rabbids game. We saw some footage of that really weird Gameloft Disney kart racing game. There were several other farming games, which, I mean, yay, if you like farm simulation, cool. Oh my gosh, it's such an oversaturated market now. Hoo boy. However, on the flip side, again, this afternoon, we had the Sony State of Play, and we have just a few games that came out during that. First off, the official reveal of Tekken 8. Oh man, I'm happy. From a story perspective, Tekken 8 is kind of at a weird place, with Heihachi Mishima being definitely actually for realsies this time dead at the end of Tekken 7, and Kazuya Mishima of Smash Bros. Fame now being featured as the main series villain, regardless of how you feel about Jin Kazama. I should probably note that Tekken has also seen some recent focus in mainstream media because of the Netflix anime Tekken Bloodlines, which seems to have been decently well received. I saw some people talk about like how weird the art style was, but hey, when you're trying to adapt a game like Tekken, honestly not much better that I think you could have done. I just personally would have preferred if there were more of the characters from the initial game focused on. Although I will say, it's super cool that we get to see new characters like Leroy Smith showing up in the lore for, like, the Tekken, like, 1 through 3 games. Pretty neato. After that, we got some new trailers for God of War Ragnarok, as well as a limited edition PS5 controller, the DualSense. Gonna say, pretty cool looking. I still haven't played the PS4 God of War, so I'm behind. I don't know. This is one of those games that everyone talks like so much hype about that I have never seen the appeal of. But hey, maybe this time around I'll give it a go. The PSVR 2 system is going to be receiving 2 new games. We have Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, as well as Demeo, a tabletop game in which there's like multiple players like dungeon crawling simultaneously. That's pretty neat. There's an announcement that I'm super hyped for, which is that Yakuza Ishin is finally getting a Western release after years. However, they're doing a really weird titling with it, which is it's being released in the West as Like a Dragon Ishin, which wouldn't be weird because that is like the original like Japanese name. The series is called Ryuga Gatoku, which translates directly to Like a Dragon, but Yakuza 8 was released in Japan as, like, you know, Ryuga Gatoku 8, but over here it was released as Yakuza Like a Dragon, meaning that we used the subtitle for the series as, we used the official title for the series as the subtitle for one game in the series. This isn't actually the first time this has happened. Bizarrely, Resident Evil 7 did a very similar thing. For those of you who might be familiar with the Resident Evil series, you might remember that the subtitle of Resident Evil 7 was Biohazard, which is also just the name of the Resident Evil franchise in Japan. In fact, in Japan, the name of that game was Biohazard 7 Resident Evil. That's so weird. That's so weird to me. I've never understood this naming convention. It just seems like bizarre and like self-referential. I can't really wrap my head around it, but hey, I'm not full of bees. Hogwarts Legacy is getting PlayStation exclusive content. Cool. This is one of those games that I think is like super cool in concept. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. However, I don't know if I will be purchasing this one just because I don't wish to support J.K. Rowling, who famously took credit for writing the Harry Potter franchise after stealing it from its original creator, Hatsune Miku. You may recall that being a big copyright claim. Miku's very broken up about it. Pacific Drive, first title from a new studio, is announced. The studio is called Ironwood Studios, and I know basically nothing about this. It's a driving game. It's post-apocalyptic. That's all I got for you. It looks... I was going to say it looks sort of Mad Max-esque, but, like, it doesn't really. It honestly looks closer to, like, if you remember the games coming out around the beginning of the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era, where skies just always sort of had that, like, burnt umber look to them. You're like, oh, it's all grungy. It honestly looks more like that, which is weird because, like, don't get me wrong, the game itself is pretty high fidelity, but I don't think that what we've seen of the game really shows that off too much. I could be wrong, but I don't know. This seems like a game to keep an eye out on, but it'll take some convincing to get me to buy it. Duality. We actually saw this game announced a while back. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different game. I'm thinking of a Capcom title, Pragmata. Is that the name of it? I think so. Which we still haven't seen gameplay of. This game just like has some shared like visual elements with it. It is a Duality. It's a third-person shooter developed by Bandai Namco, and it's cool looking. I like mechs, but like you try and get me like much beyond a certain magical virtualon, or sorry, a certain scientific virtualon, and I'm kind of lost. There's a new game called Stellar Blade coming out that we don't really know much about. It's from a studio called Shift Up, which I've never heard of. But I mean, cool space stuff happening. Got a pretty cool futuristic appearance for it. After that, there's Rise of the Ronin, which is developed by Team Ninja, which you may recall as the developers of the Neo franchise. Neo 1 and 2 being some of the most celebrated games on the PS4 and were ported fairly recently, I think, to the PlayStation 5 with extreme graphical up-resing. It looks pretty cool. However, this game is a ways out, being released in 2024. That's all we got for the Direct and State of Play. My overall thoughts on this? Whoo boy, today was full. I don't know exactly if I had expectations going in, but I think Nintendo definitely pulled their weight a bit more if I'm like ranking these two sets of announcements. Although the thing that I am most hyped for in terms of announcements would be a fight between the new Fire Emblem being released and Tekken 8. So I don't know. I think they're about evenly matched in terms of like their most hype announcements, although it should be noted that most people's most hype reaction from this will almost certainly be the new Breath of the Wild game. Or Tears of the Wind, sorry. I got the name wrong again. But I will say, during the Nintendo Direct, it did definitely feel as though there was like too much emphasis focusing on farm simulation games. This is entirely my own opinion here. However, when you have like 6 or 7 games announced in like the same time span of like 30 to 40 minutes that all look like pretty close to the same game, it gets to be like, it kind of wears down on like how excited you can be for any one of those, even if you're someone who's super into that style of game, which again, I'm not. I think Stardew Valley's boring. Hot take. But there's not much you can do to get people excited about that when you're launching it alongside like 7 nearly identical games. So I think PlayStation did better in terms of like variety. But again, PlayStation didn't announce nearly as much today. They simply announced like a few really big things, while Nintendo showed off a few really big things and everything else. So overall, I will say Nintendo is the clear victor here. However, I wouldn't count Sony out yet, because Tekken 8 is about to be crazy. That's about all I got for you all today. Thank you so much for returning for the second season of episodes. Again, my name's Deforest White. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback for myself or the Eastern Progress Media Network, you can contact me at deforest_white124@mymail.eku.edu, or the podcasting director, Ryan Gumm, at Ryan_Gumm, that's Gumm, 1@mymail.eku.edu. You can also find the EP Media Network at www.easternprogress.com, as well as at the Eastern Progress on Facebook and at Eastern Progress on Instagram and Twitter. As usual, have a lovely evening, lovely night, and I hope to see you all next time. Thank you so much.